Okay, Kim.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming via Zoom. This is cool. Just a little bit about my journey. I'll try to make it as cliff note, if they still have them, worthy. But I actually, before casting, I had a whole other career. I was a professional opera singer. So I did that for about 10 years and then was getting kind of burnt out. And so I took a break thinking at some point the urge would come back to me. It'd call me back, and it never quite did. And I was okay with that. But I knew I wanted to stay creative in some way. But I wasn't called to the stage anymore. So I ended up moving to New York and paying my bills and figuring it out. And a friend of mine had suggested that maybe casting would be something that I would be good at. And I really didn't know anything about casting. So I had an opportunity, as most of us start, through an internship. And I started my first and only internship with Judy Henderson. And what was interesting about it is I thought I'd do it for a couple months and feel it out, see if it's something I want to do. And usually the next step would be to get an assistant position somewhere and then move your way up to associate. But 2 weeks into my internship, Judy offered me her associate position. So I kind of jumped really fast. And so all my plans went out the window. But I also decided that there was a reason this was happening and to just jump in with 2 feet and I'd figure it out at some point. So I'm a big believer in fake it till you make it. So that was in 2003. So this is my 20th year casting. And when I started with Judy, we did commercials and voiceovers, theater, film, television. I even did video game motion capture and voiceovers and things like that. So I've done quite a bit. But yeah, Leslie, as she pointed out earlier, I spent actually 10 years casting 8 seasons of Homeland. And that was my most challenging job, casting, simply because of the nature of our show, because we shot all over the world and I had to find people that spoke Pashto and very interesting qualities and skill sets. So that was a good challenge, but it really stretched me as a casting director. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So that's my journey in a nutshell. Did I miss something, Leslie?
Well, I'm being totally selfish, but can you tell us like what was some of the most like crazy stuff that happened on during the process of casting Homeland, because it was so complex and also because of the subject matter, right?
Yeah. It was, it was interesting. The journey from the beginning of Homeland to the very end had changed quite a bit. It had started off kind of centering around the 2 main characters, Carrie and Brody, and the idea was that they were going to kind of kill him off in the first season, but there was such a fan base, so they kind of kept him on for a couple more seasons and then finally moved on. But what had happened in the evolution of our show was, which I find was really interesting, was our team, our creative team, would meet in Washington for like a week with former CIA and basically ask them, what keeps you up at night? And so we built our storylines a lot around those subjects. And I think when it really hit home for me was, it was July of 2018. I was reading a script and it was all about bots in social media. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That would be crazy if that happened. And then we found out in the fall of 2018 that bots were manipulating on social media. And so it made my hair stand on end. And I thought every script that I opened from that point on, I was like, no, is that going to happen? Is that going to happen? So it was a little weird. Because when I thought about it too, by the time that episode, you know, was created, I mean, it was months prior, and then it got shot out, and then it got, you know, so you could go back a year. And it was interesting, our last season focus, because we always wondered, you know, how are we going to wrap it up? And we had a lot of theme around the Taliban. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, haven't really heard much about them lately. And when our show aired, the first show of the last season, we were in the middle of negotiating with the Taliban. So, and here again, just kind of craziness. But, you know, we worked, you know, when we were shooting outside of the US, you know, we worked in tandem with other casting offices. We were the head casting office, but we had help from the UK, help from Berlin, Morocco, Afghanistan. So we had a lot of, what do they say? It takes a village. So it was complex, but it was, you know, very efficient. So very lucky.
Kimberly, what about, was there pressure to try and use as many American actors as you could, or was it just more practical that if you're going to be in Iraq, or I'm sure you didn't go to Iraq, but or Belarus or wherever, that you would use local actors? How did that work?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. We certainly had a big budget, so but we would still try as best we could to get people as local to the location as possible. But you know, sometimes it just wasn't possible, or sometimes it was so specific that we just had to get our actor wherever we could find them. So, you know, ideally your line producer wants you to stay on budget. And so, you know, if I'm looking for an American speaking actor and we're shooting in Berlin, I'm going to see if I can get somebody from Berlin, especially if it's like a co-star role. You know, that's a lot of money to fly somebody from the States. And you can find, you know, English, American accented people in Europe. So, you know, we just kind of covered all over. Yeah.
Interesting. So the last 3 years have impacted us all in many ways.
Yeah.
I don't think we fully realize how big the impact is, because we're still sort of figuring out this new world. What has changed for you pre and post pandemic? And how do you see the industry evolving even more over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think the pandemic, I mean, we've never experienced anything like that in terms of the whole world literally shutting down. I mean, you know, it wasn't just here and there, it was everybody. But I think it also, you know, I used to joke too. I was like, of course, 2020, hindsight's 2020, you know. But I think, you know, maybe the divine or something, you know, planned it that way. But it really made us sit and, you know, we had to pivot, right? We had to figure out how to finish productions that were already, you know, shooting, and putting ones on hold and stuff like that, and working around the COVID protocols. And, you know, it was just a nutty time. And, you know, a lot of casting offices gave up their brick and mortars and started working from home. And most of us have continued to do that because we can. It's kind of nice not to have the commute. And so I think you're seeing a little bit of a hybrid in terms of, I think self-tapes are probably going to be here to stay, unfortunately. But what I do see and hear is that some people are doing live sessions on Zooms, and some people are doing live sessions in person when it comes to like a callback or chemistry read or things like that. So it feels to me at this point that that's kind of where we're going to be. Um, I know you had another question in there, Leslie. I forgot.
Well, actually, that is, I'm basically, those questions, speaking of hybrid, that is a very hybrid question because Biden just announced that the COVID-19 emergency is over, right? SAG-AFTRA COVID protocols are set to expire on May 11th.
Right.
And I'm wondering, have you spoken with colleagues? Are you comparing notes, or are you all planning to resume, or any of you planning to resume in the room auditions, maybe self-tapes initially, and then callbacks would be in the room? There's a casting director here who just did callbacks in the room, and everybody was freaking out because they're like, I don't remember how to be in the room. Right?
No, I hear you. No, I did. I just had a fireside, we call them fireside chats, C.S.A. meeting. So last week, I don't know, every day is Blur's day, but that seems to be what everybody's sort of doing right now. I think the challenge that we're having in New York is that a lot of the spaces, like, even if we were going to do in-person casting, a lot of them they're charging by the day, and maybe we only need half a day, and they're not as flexible, so it kind of limits our options. But here again, I think because we can work this way, we have found a way to work this way, that it'll probably be that kind of structure where it's self-tapes, initial round, and then in-person callbacks and that kind of thing. So yeah, no, I mean, it's weird. I just taught at SAG-AFTRA Foundation last week, and that was my first in-person. And we were all kind of like, oh my God, we're in the room together. So, it was cool. So we miss it, but if a company doesn't have to spend 10 grand a month to rent a floor in Times Square, that's the less overhead we have to deal with. So that's why I'm saying I think that the self-tape thing is here to stay. It wasn't a transition for me because I did a lot of self-tapes for Homeland. So, but I know for a lot of you guys that weren't used to doing it, maybe, well, not so much the Southeast, Southwest. I feel like you guys get requests a lot for that, but in terms of, people that were used to going into the rooms, and all of a sudden, you got to self-tape, you got to get equipment, you got to, and there was a lot of confusion about that. And all of a sudden the actor had to be their own editor and their own, DP and all that stuff. But I will say, in the scheme of it all, because there was a lot of questions floating around, it was like, oh, do I have to use a certain camera or a certain lighting? And we're like, look, we want to see you, we want to hear you, and use a reader. That's it. We understand that the audition process is unnatural as they come. And so those were not expectations that casting directors ever put on the actors. That was other people and other things. So I just kind of want to set the record straight, because I know some people were like, oh no, I have to get this. I'm like, throw a blue sheet in the back. That's it. You don't need to get some highfalutin equipment. No, use your phone. It's fine.
I love that. Actually, you keep going right into what was going to be my next question. I love it. I don't have to do anything. What do you notice in self-tapes? So you're saying obviously the lighting should be good so that you can see the person's face, right? And you have to hear them. They have to be heard. They have to be seen. Beyond that, what if the blue sheet is wrinkly? What do you look for? What stands out?
Well, like I said, just keep it simple. I don't need fancy schmancy, I don't, that's not going to sell me that you're a better actor because you have better equipment, I'm looking at the performance.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking at. So is if we want our eyes to go straight to you. So you want a clean background. Now, if there's a couple wrinkles in your sheet, I'm not going to throw a tizzy, I mean, that's not the most important thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some people are like, hey man, I'm stuck at the airport and you want my self-tape, they're going to find a wall to, go behind, get behind them and do it that way. I mean, work with
Yeah.
what you have, but like I said, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things, you know?
I love that. I don't know about everyone else, but that just gives me a feeling of great freedom. You know
Like
what?
I said, you don't need
Nothing
to, you don't need
airport.
anything crazy. Like I said, it's just, our look, use your phone and, make sure your angle's good, so you're not like looking into the Zoom, whatever it is,
Yeah.
like keep your frame, a little loose because now you're not in the room. We can't really see you physically. So you want, a nice sort of medium close up shot is perfect. And yeah, just like don't go crazy. Don't overthink it, you
Well,
know?
that's good. I think all of us at this point understand the basics, right? Every time most of us get an audition, our agent or manager makes sure to go over the basics, right? Do it if you're going to use your phone horizontal and, and make sure that you have a separate, if you're going to slate, do it separate from this. And that, the directions are very specific and they usually
Yeah,
put
and
them in grades.
I sent out, self-tape instructions when I have people self-tape too.
Right.
So, but if you don't get them, then yeah, that's good that the managers and agents will kind of help you with that. But I will say to that point, if we send you self-tape instructions and we say we want a front slate, not a back slate, and you do a back slate, you're not following the directions. So what
Right.
does that tell us? You know? So pay attention to those things for sure.
Mhm.
We're not having you do anything crazy, but if we ask for a certain format or separate your clips or your takes, whatever, follow the directions, please.
Mhm.
You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people are, we've all had at least 3 years to polish this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You all have gotten better, I will say.
Yeah. I was,
Even when teaching on Zoom and stuff, I remember, we first got on Zoom, people were like, hello, can you, like the reader's not in the room. I don't know who I'm looking at and who I'm speaking to. And I think I got to shout through it. So, I mean, it took all of us time to adjust to that. Because here again, I'm still looking at it as a cinematic experience, even though I'm on Zoom with you. So I don't want you to bring me into your world, I want to observe it. So volume wise and everything, it's like reminding yourself, keep it all in the room, keep it in the room.
right.
Trust that we can see you and we can hear you. You don't have to push.
So, what about the acting part? What do you notice? What catches your attention?
Such a broad question.
It is. I
I
mean,
It's hard. I
yeah,
mean, it's hard because you have people throw around these words, make strong choices. What does
I
that mean?
know. Right.
What does
Right.
that mean? Give your character a tick because it seems like it'd be interesting when it's not called for in the role. Like, I think it's just make choices. Make a choice, I always say, I'd rather be fabulously wrong, but committed. You know, I can work with that. But when you're not clear about your character, what your characters want, what's the obstruction that gets in the way of the want, what's the result of that, then, it's gonna, my eyes are gonna roll in the back of my head.
Mhm.
But if you come in and you just sit it and you own that role, and any actor that's working right now comes in the room and does that, or on their self-tape. They come, there's nothing, I used to say, when you guys would come into the room, the first thing I'd say is, do you have any questions? Now, if the actor said to me, I don't think so, unless there's something you want to tell me, I know I'm going to get a good performance. If they come and I go, well, now, are they brother and sister, or is that her boyfriend? You haven't done the work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, like I said, be fabulously wrong. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I get it. Like, it's hard because in this day and age, we're signing, you know, non-disclosures. We're not getting the whole script sometimes. We're just getting the scene and it's out of context. And I get the challenges. I really, really do. But like I said, just come in and just be clear. Just be clear about your choices and the character's wants, you know.
Love it. Um, what do you think the biggest misconceptions about casting directors and what they can do and what they can't do? Do you have a
It's that
feeling?
we're almighty and we have all this power. And we don't. The only power I have is to open up the door for you, but you got to walk through it. Um, I, it's especially, in terms of like, let's just say television. Do you know how many layers you have to go through to be approved for a role? So we put out a breakdown, we go through submissions, we ask you to tape or we bring you in, we submit our choices, then it goes through, the writers and the director of the episode and the showrunner, and everybody chimes in, and then it ultimately is picked by the showrunner, and then it has to go to the production company for approval, and then after that has to go, you know what I mean? And it could stop at any time. So it's like you have to remind yourself what you have control over. And the only thing that you have control over is what you do in that room or on that self-tape. That's it. That's
Uh,
it.
I agree. I agree
Because
wholeheartedly.
you're going to get in your head, you're going to be, oh, when they get the role. And, look, I could have every single one of you audition for the same role. That's the world we're in today. 20 years ago, everybody looked like you in the reception area, but now it's just so opened up, which is wonderful. But, if you felt you kicked ass, but you didn't get the role because they, let's say I auditioned, but they went with a guy. Okay, well, nothing I could do about it. It's what it is. So just keeping yourself healthy in that way and not getting in your head about it. You know what I mean?
That can actually work in your favor. I got my SAG card with my first audition, um, and it was for a guy. The role was for a guy, and the director liked my read and said, Taft Hartley her. And, again, it was supposed to be a guy. So I always say women should always read men's roles and men should read women's roles. And
Well,
um,
I mean, especially when let's say for the co-star level,
mhm.
one of our writers on Homeland put it best. And he said, look, we're just dressing the set. It's live wallpaper.
Well,
Now
that
that
doesn't
doesn't,
make us feel very good as actors.
no, but what we're saying is we're trying to reflect the world we're playing in. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? And so if we go, got a lot of women in this episode, maybe we throw a man in this one role. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or let's go with another ethnicity, or, I'm just saying that, I mean, that's as basic as it gets. And I don't say that and share that with you to make you feel bad. It's to simply point out that, it can go any which way, which
Right.
is,
And
very
really, we're all serving the story, right?
exactly.
We're all serving the story, and there's a vision, and if we're right for that vision, and sometimes if we're lucky, they see something they didn't realize that they wanted, and that adds to the vision. So,
Absolutely. Minds are constantly being changed, you could come in and all of a sudden somebody just, whoa, I didn't even think of it that way. And boom, you're off in another direction. So,
yeah. Um, Laurel asked a question, and I kind of think we answered it. Laurel, did we answer your question?
I think so. I was just, hi.
I,
Oh, I gotta find you. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, that's okay. Hi, Kimberly. Thank you so much for doing this, both of you. This is great.
Yeah, sure.
I was just thinking about when you were talking about looking at so many auditions, obviously so many more than you used to. Let's say two actors are just right for the role in your mind, or whoever's deciding. Are there any things that you see consistently that might set one actor apart? I know you said the backgrounds don't matter, but I've heard other casting directors say, well, if it's apples to apples, we might go with one that's just technically a little better. Or are there any acting traits that you see that, might consistently set one actor just right above the other one a little bit? in your final decision of a person, if that makes sense.
I no, it does make I feel like if I could answer those kind of questions, I'd have written a book.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's your gut, right? It's like your taste. It's, what are you drawn to? I don't know. I always like to think outside the box a little bit and stretch it a little bit. So even if I have like kind of what I think the team expects, but then throw in somebody who's just different and interesting,
Mhm.
see if they respond. Um, I mean, I haven't run into too many of those things. I mean, I will say, and this goes back to like what you have control over. There was one role, it was down to two women, and two writers could not come to a consensus. One liked one liked the other, and none of them were going to budge. And we were forced to see more people. So both those wonderful actresses got canceled out simply because of that. So it had nothing to do with their ability to do the role. It's just they couldn't, nobody could come to agreement. So you've got all kinds of challenges, like I said, that are not in my control, in your control. Um, so I don't know. I think, we get hired on our taste. And I think it's just, you know, when you're lucky enough to work like on like maintain a series, you get a sense of what your team's probably going to respond to, you
Yeah.
know, and then you try to mix it up a little. You don't want to show them the same 50 people all the time. That's boring. Um, let's put the pieces of a puzzle together. It's really what it is.
Yeah.
But in
No,
terms of what one person standing up more than the other, I don't know. I mean, I felt strongly about somebody and they go in another direction. I'm like, all right, well, you know, it's just what
yeah.
it is. I'm not going to worry about it.
Well, thank you.
So
That's comforting. I think it comes back to do the work and do our best, and it's out of our
that's
hands.
it. That's it. And look, you are working in an industry full of opinions. Take what works for you and throw the rest of the way, and know that you're going to ask that same question to another person. They're going to give you a totally different answer. So, it's what it is.
Thank you. That's awesome. Appreciate it.
Cool. No
I
problem.
love that. I have one more question, and then we're going to open it up more formally to a Q&A because I've got some questions coming in. Um, Someone has their hand raised, and I don't know your name, but if you would, but you're called iPhone. If you could also just put your question in the chat, just um, a quick version of it, that would be great as I call on people. Kim, a lot of the people here tonight are in New Mexico. There's some people from LA and
Texas.
Dallas, and there's different markets represented. But how do you view all these different markets? How much, when you're working on a project, are you going to reach? Are you going to, if you're in New York, are you going to reach out to Atlanta, LA? How much does New Mexico play into this? Can you talk at all about what you see as the flow of the different markets? And
Yeah, I think it's changing a little bit, but um so Leslie knows, but I've taught all over, um, as well as internationally. And so I've taught in Atlanta, Jacksonville, Savannah, Austin, New Orleans. So I got to work with the actors down there, and it really opened up my eyes because I think LA, New York, we kind of think coastally, and so sometimes those markets get missed and bypassed. But I also think there's a responsibility for those agents and managers in those markets to reach out to us more effectively. There was a time a friend of mine owned an agency, and she said, I submit all the time to the New York and the LA, you know, casting directors, and they never open my submissions. And I said, well, it says Florida. They're going to go right to, New York or LA. That's just how the mindset had been for all this time.
Mhm.
But I think now with people moving around, I mean, people left New York because they could raise their family in Atlanta and there was work down there and it opened them up. And so it's changing a lot, but I think I would tap into those markets um, a little more now because I've gotten to see the talent that
Mhm.
are in those markets, do you know?
Once
And
you can trust the people in that market, then you're more apt to reach
yeah, sure.
reach further. Mhm.
Well, we always just kind of worked with the obvious, right? It was always just sort of dominated by LA or New York, but there's a lot of work down in Atlanta now and um, the Southwest. So, but here again, I would appreciate if those agents in those markets would, even if we did something like this, but like a workshopping or something where I could work with their actors and then get them on my radars. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, that's going to help me open up those submissions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's open it up to a few people. I'm going to start with Maggie. Maggie Mart, are you willing to talk, or would you like me to ask your question?
Oh, I could talk. Thank you so
Yay.
much.
Hi, Maggie.
Yeah, and my dog might talk too. I'm sorry. Nice to meet you, Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So my question is about getting a casting director for a project that's non-union. And this might be too below your scope, obviously. I know you work in big projects in television and also film. But I'm just curious, does it make sense to get a casting director for non-union project? My assumption would be that most connections that would be for SAG actors, not necessarily in the non-union talent space. So what sort of advice could you?
I think it would depend. I mean, what's the budget, first of all?
Well, I have a project coming up. The budget is just under 200K. And it's like a proof of concept. It's like a 25-page proof of concept script. It'll be shooting in Dallas.
Yeah. How many characters?
A five main characters, but there's a good number of background and kind of second, probably like 3 speaking roles outside of those main characters.
Okay.
And it's a
Well,
period piece.
I mean, it's not to say that people wouldn't work on, a casting director wouldn't work on that. But it would also, there's just a lot of factors involved. Do you know what I mean? I'm not as confident working in the non-union market because it's just a talent pool that I don't know. So, it could be a lot of work to try to get. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're like, I need 65-year-old males that are non-union, how many am I going to find realistically? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean, I
So
wonder if it's like the type of project that maybe a young, coming up, hungry casting director is trying to get their, make a mark
yeah,
type of situation, or, but
yeah.
are you saying that regardless, people just aren't, a casting director isn't going to have access to non-union talent the way they would to SAG
It's
talent?
not about the access because I mean, if you're a serious working actor and you're not in SAG-AFTRA, you should have your profile on Actors Access, right? So we can,
Yeah.
when we post a breakdown, it'll go, and there's agents that, represent non-union talent. So it's not about the access so much. It's just when you work under union contracts all the time and you're just so used to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of know where to hit, like who has the goods, in that way. But that would be something, there's a lot of, associates that are looking to build up their casting director credits, so that might be attractive to them. When I look at a project, I don't really try to get caught up too much in that, but I do understand that, if you're doing a non-union project and it's an ultra low and you're you're paying, what is it? I think the rate went up, but say it was 125 a day.
Hmm.
I know I'm not going to get a lot of agent submissions. It's not worth their time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so then I'd have to do a lot of searching. So it's a lot of kind of extra footwork that, and depending on how much time I have to cast it too. So I just kind of take all those things into consideration when I've turned down a few things recently just because they want to shoot next month, and they have no money, and they have a cast of 25, and I'm like, you're nuts. Like, not everybody has to have a speaking role. The minute they talk, you got to pay them, and you got to fit that in your budget. So there's just like a lot of, I just thought it's a lot of work in a short amount of time, and it just wasn't worth it to me, at the end of the day.
Okay, I appreciate that. A follow-up question I would have, if there's time, would be, what about using union actors in a non-union shoot? And I have done that in the past, and I know that's kind of a gray area, and so I'm always unclear about how to handle that. I'm a
Well,
director.
if there's no union jurisdiction, that's fine. If they're Phi Corps, that's fine. I just think it would be hard, because if the union found out and it wasn't under those circumstances, that could, be in big trouble for the actors as well. So
Thank you. That makes sense.
I mean, it's one thing to clear somebody in the other way, you know what I mean? Non-union, you can Taft-Hartley them and get them on a union project, but like I said, unless you go Phi Corps, or unless you're working in a no union jurisdiction, that could be a problem. Yeah.
I'm going to let Donna speak for a second, because she wanted to address something that Maggie had said. Donna, let's keep it very brief, just because I have so many questions, but please, if you would like to address Maggie about the Dallas market.
Absolutely. Hi, Maggie. I'm in Texas, and I work all over Texas and in New Mexico. And I know the casting people in Dallas, if you'd like help with that. And, we're a right to work state like Atlanta is. And so, you're talking about that lower pay wage. We actors in the state, do that. We work for lower wages. Don't like it necessarily, but we work the work. So I sent my email to Leslie, and I'd be glad to send you information, but that was it. Just offering a helping hand if need be. So thank you so much.
I love it. That's community. Help each
There you
other.
go. There you go. All right. Pam has a burning question. Pam Burke,
Burn.
you have the floor.
Hi there. Thank you
Hey.
so much, Kimberly, for doing this. Thank you. I'm a SAG actor coming back after a long hiatus, and I'm just wondering if you mostly only look at SAG actors who have agents. That's one question. And then I'm interested in casting, so I'm fascinated that you were a performer and then you got into casting. So I'm just curious to know how you liked that change.
Well, like I said, I was, I was a very musical kid. I played organ at age 4 and did the band and all that stuff. And so I was just always very musical, and I kind of got pushed vocally into the classical side of singing because I could do it. And so I found myself in that world. And but I think in retrospect, I kind of did it because people were like, you should do that. And I was like, okay. So I think at the end of the day, when it wasn't calling me back, I thought, well, how hard do I really want to work on this? My heart's not really. I was coaching with somebody in Florida. And she was she's a great singer. She was sort of the poor man's Maria Callas, as I like to say. And she was coaching me, and she said, we do this because we have to. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't feel that. So that was it for me. So I enjoy the casting because it's creative, and I love working with actors. And I think I can bring my past performing experiences to the process because I understand what it's like to audition. I understand what it's like to not get a role, So, I really make it my job to create a safe environment for you to do your best work. Back to the first part of your question, which was
I'm a SAG actor, but
SAG actor. Yeah.
coming back after a hiatus and just wondering.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, if you're in the union, that's helpful. I don't necessarily take a preferential to agents and managers, but they're my go-to, realize that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of actors out there. And sometimes our process is so quick that, we rely on that. And I mean, there's even times where, would say to Judy, I'm like, whatever happened to so-and-so? Are they still in the business? Like, you're just moving along. And, so that's why the agents and managers are helpful to us in that way, because they'll remind us of who's out there. But, I do a lot of searches on Actors Access. So I certainly make sure I get as much coverage as I can.
Fantastic.
So don't worry about that part. You'll get an agent manager when you're ready to have something to manage.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Ani Rosario, just as I can read this message for her. So she's in LA. She's had the experience this past year of auditioning for guest parts repeatedly by a casting office, but then she doesn't get a call back. And she's asking, so the work is there, but not quite. And if you can speak on that. And Ani, you might have to explain if you're there.
Yes, hi.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Especially last year in the New Mexico market, I was just getting called again and again and again for different roles, sometimes for the same show, well, mostly for the same show. But I would never get any response, not a callback, like no adjustment, and so I'm trying to sort of reflect and like how to get better. And so what can I sort of glean from that? Like, what is the perspective on that can help me?
Yeah, I think I know you're asking. Well, first, congratulations if the same casting office is bringing you back. They think you can do the roles, but there's other factors, right? I mean, it's different director on different episodes. It's your teams are changing, but if you're consistently getting called back in the same offices, I think that speaks to your work. Otherwise they'd be like, yeah, it's not worth it. It's hard. I understand you're not going to get feedback on your, especially self-tapes. People feel like I send in my self-tape and I don't get any feedback or whatever like that. And it's like, I mean, it's impossible. Even in person, it was hard to give feedback to everybody. I mean, agents and managers would call, but it's, you don't get caught up in that. You're doing a good job if they keep calling you back. You know what I mean? But here again, different directors on different episodes. I mean, I had a girl, she was like, I've auditioned for Law and Order, 7 times and I haven't booked. What am I doing wrong? I was like, you went in 7 times. Different directors, different episodes, different teams. Like,
Right.
can't worry about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
idea is you want to book the office. You want to book the casting office. Because if we like your work, we'll bring you back. So
Thank you.
There you
yeah,
go.
no worries.
Thanks, Ani. Adam Harvey.
Very good. Hi. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been really helpful. Yeah, I'm Adam Harvey. I'm a regional actor here in the Southwest in New Mexico. And I'm curious, just tell a quick personal story that there's a specific casting director here in this area that will, give like a 24-hour deadline and also add to that a note that earlier submissions get a better chance and of being cast and so on. And that has me concerned. I mean, I rarely get anything more than like a 48-hour deadline. And you know, the issues of scheduling a reader. I mean, I'm pretty much reliant upon a reader's schedule as well. And so I think there's a lot of issues of like dust settling after COVID and so on about exactly how things are going to be structured as we move forward. Because as you
Right.
say, I see it. Self-tapes are here to stay. And I understand that and I accept that. At the same time, I wonder how much give and take, you know, there is with regards to this. And I've heard that now, since you're no longer having to schedule people in your offices and so on, that you're actually viewing a lot more for a single role than you were before. Is that accurate? You know, I'm just kind of curious about kind of what you sense is transpiring.
Yeah,
In
we've,
the
you
casting
know, I've
environment.
talked about this in our casting community.
Mhm.
I think there's a couple things happening. First of all, the idea that like, oh, we're requesting hundreds and hundreds of tapes now, the more than ever because we're not in the room.
Mm.
I'm not putting that extra work on me. Now, if I used to see 6 people for the role, maybe I'll see 10 now.
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I think there's a little bit of a paranoia that has set in with the casting community since we're working from home and everything, that like, we've got to show them that we're working, you know, so we're just going to get tapes, you know. I don't work like that. Maybe I'll never get hired again. I don't know. But quality over quantity for me. I don't need that extra work, you know? So there's that. The 24-hour turnaround, I've heard that a lot. I don't know why that's happening. I mean, not to say that it doesn't happen on occasion. I mean, I've had a role get written in over the weekend and had to see somebody on Monday to, you know, travel them Tuesday to shoot Wednesday. I mean, sometimes that happens, but it seems almost kind of epidemic that it's happening, and I'm not sure why.
Right.
Also, when they give you 8 pages to audition
Right.
with,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is how I if I don't like you in 4 seconds, I ain't gonna like you in 40. So I don't need 8 pages of your dialogue to convince me you could do the role. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know where that comes from. I certainly, if I was working with a director that, and I've had directors, I'll say, okay, pick the scenes and I'll mark them up and whatever. And they, you know, go through and they're giving me 3, you know, big scenes. I'm like, no. Pick one. If you like them, we call them back. We can add another, but I'm not doing that to the actor, because what are we doing? Are we trying to see if somebody can memorize? Or are we going to see if they actually can do a performance?
Yeah.
So I feel your frustration. I've heard it. I get upset about it. I don't know how to fix it. I know how I run my room and my process, but I think it's really unfair to do that to an actor. And to say, oh, if you get it in early, you're going to have a better chance. Look, we just want to get, you know, we're going to start the process. So I will say,
That
yeah,
has me deeply concerned. It has me deeply concerned because I'm wondering, does that mean that you're only watching the early ones? Once you have enough people, you send them off and you don't watch the rest, you know?
yeah, well, that's what I would say, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, if I got, say, 10 tapes in, I'm going to review them and then I'll start to weed them down, you know, and then if I get more, I mean, I have agents all the time say, hey man, he's traveling, he's not going to be able to get it to you. Can we do it? You know, can we get it to you the next day? Sure.
Mhm.
No problem. No problem. You know what I mean? Here again, I don't know, because, and I don't know, maybe they're either it's coming from them or it's coming from their team that's pressuring them to do that. And
Right.
you know, nobody wants to lose the job, so you got to do what the client wants. So, I mean, I don't think it's one thing. I really don't. And I hate that happens, but it's, yeah. Sorry about that, guy.
I got cast last week. I'm not, I'm not in the desert or anything. But it is a
No, but I mean,
concern. So I thought
it's a
yeah.
lot. It's a lot. You guys have, like I said, COVID, all of a sudden you got to tape yourselves and you're pumping out tapes and, you know, you're not hearing anything back and you just keep taping and, you know, like, I need this yesterday. And you're like, why? You know, like, what is happening that everybody's in this crazy rush? That's
Right.
not to say that those don't happen on occasion, right?
Mhm.
but like all the time, it kind of makes me think that, like, here again, that the casting directors feel this pressure to show that they're working.
Yeah.
And so they're just going to take all kinds of tapes and just be like, here. I don't know.
I think you should do a training video for casting directors, Kim.
I mean, I don't know. There could be many factors in that. That's why I said it could be the pressure on the casting director, produce, and it could be their team just being like, we need these tomorrow. And you're like, okay, I mean,
Well-
I've worked with people that have done that to us, and you're just like,
Well, I
never.
deeply appreciate the perspective that you give, that it's pretty much up to the casting office, each one, and the decisions they make. That's actually very helpful. Thank you.
Well,
Um,
I can speak for myself. I don't know what these other casting directors go through. I would just say that I think part of my job is to protect the actor as well. And if my director's saying, well, I need to see 8 pages of this, I'm like, that's too much. And you want it tomorrow? It's not happening. Like, compromise, you know what I mean? So, but I also work with a lot of young directors, so I think they don't know kind of how to, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, no, that's not how we do it. No, no, no. No, we're not gonna go there. So
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
so we have Camellia and then Lily.
Hello. So, a while back, I actually ended up booking a job, flew to Atlanta and was told that my agent called me and said they may not use you because of your hair. When obviously when I auditioned, they knew what my hair looked like. So the director was PO'd. But so now that's something that I'm concerned about. We moved to a less diverse market, and I'm hearing crickets. And so I'm like wondering if, number one, how to get on the casting director's radar in the new market that we're in, and just wondering if that is a thing, because it has happened to me and it's happened more than once.
So just go back to the beginning, and so you booked the job,
Mhm,
they flew you out,
mhm. And when
and
I
then
looked at
who told you they might not use you because
my
of your,
agent called me once I touched down. She said, I just wanted to let you know they may not use you because of your hair. And I was like,
but was she told, did somebody tell her that?
yes, they told her that. So I knew it was true because the director was pissed. And she was like, they knew what your hair looked like when they booked you for the job. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
um
So who is making this decision or deciding that you're not going to shoot the role?
I guess the client. And so they shot
They
me.
don't
I
have hair
knew
and
that
makeup?
I'm sorry, say that again.
They don't have hair and makeup people?
They did. Yeah. But
You look, I mean, I had a director once. It was a co-star role, right? The girl's got hair long as mine. He sends me a picture of Anne Hathaway in a pixie cut. And he's like, do you think she cut her hair for this? I'm like, no. And I'm not even going to ask her, because you're asking her to alter her look for one freaking role. This is not a recur.
mhm,
You know what I mean? They were like, okay. I was like, and you can wig her if you want. You
mhm.
know, like, that's why I was asking, because obviously I'm hopefully on bigger productions, they've got people there that can, make it work however they want it to work. But that's really disturbing. That's really disturbing to hear that.
Well, since now I'm in a less diverse market, I think, and I'm hearing cricket. So I don't know if it's a combination of not being on the casting director's radar since we're new to the area, or if it's
Well, that's
that
probably
we're
it.
just
Where are you?
moving.
Where are you now?
I'm in Denver.
Yeah. I like Denver.
Me too.
I actually sang at Central City Opera years ago in Colorado. You should check out the Oh My God Road.
But
Do you know about that?
Uh-uh.
It's called Oh My God Road, and it's from Idaho Springs. It's in Idaho Springs,
Okay.
and it's a road that has like no, like what do you call it?
Street lights.
it's like one little road that like has like no guardrails or anything, and it's like an 8,000-foot drop. And I went there once and I was like, what is this? So I'm like, oh my God, right? And boom, I understood exactly. Never had a panic attack in my life until that. Remember, well, you know, I think send your materials and just be like, hey, just moved to the area from wherever. Just wanted to, you know, put you on my radar. I mean, do you have links like to a reel or anything that they could look at?
Yes.
Yeah. So reach out, see if you can find their email.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, like I said, especially since you moved to a new market.
Mhm.
I'd be, you know, grateful to get somebody like that on my radar. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
tell them I sent you.
There you go.
Actually, it means nothing to them, so don't worry about it. So
Um, Kim, are you okay to go over a few minutes?
yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, anyone who has to leave, we understand, but I'd like to get it to as many questions as we can. Lillian, you had some questions.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you first off. Second off, so I'm a 15-year-old young actress, and first, I'm also an Avatar super fan. I love Avatar. And I just wanted to know about the process of casting that was like and all the details. And then also, I wanted to know if I didn't have an agent, if I would still be able to audition for stuff like that and audition for Avatar.
Okay. Well, so let me clear up the Avatar thing. So Margie Simpkin, who she was the casting director on it, was coming out to New York to see some folks and asked if I would help her. Okay. So we set up the session. I knew nothing about what it was. I just knew it was a James Cameron project. Everybody had to sign NDEs. Let's see. I remember Margie telling me that they were writing a language for it as we spoke. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it was an improv audition. It was very strange because they had to do it in like another language, like made up their language. And anyway, you know, that was it. I cashed my check, moved on with my life. And 2 years later, I see James Cameron's Avatars starring Zoe Saldana. And we had seen Zoe in New York. And I was like, oh, I guess that's what I worked on. So that's my Avatar story. In terms of auditioning without an agent, I mean, it's hard, right? But you got time, girl. Like, what? Finish school. You know, don't worry about it. Where are you based, Lillian?
I'm in Vancouver, Washington.
Okay, so there's some work up there. Yeah, do any casting directors in the area do like workshops and stuff?
I don't know if any casting directors do, but I do know that there are actors. Like I do acting classes with this actor named Brian Sutherland, and I do his workshops. I don't know about any casting directors though, but I have done Zoom
Because
workshops.
the reason I say that is because like we do those here in New York, you know, in LA and places like that where you work with a casting director in a workshop situation. You know, if there was somebody offering that in your area, then I'd say, you know, see if you can sign up for it and get on the radar that way. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Kim, this just in from Gigi. She says to tell you that this hair issue is something that SAG-AFTRA is currently working on. They're addressing it, making sure that there's someone available on set to work with specific hair types. So there you go. Thank you, Gigi.
It's that well, you know, they should because that, like I said, when I heard that, I was like, my heart sunk. That is unacceptable. You know what my hair looks like, you know? So yeah.
Let's see, Lee, you had a question about the writer's strike, and then Julian. After
Well,
Lee,
yeah, sorry. Hey, Kimberly. I was going to ask about the writer's strike, but I figured I'm gonna divert and go. I've got a question. I think I help more people on about character descriptions. So breakdown services uh has writers that writes the character descriptions, agent submits on that. Now, when it comes to the actor through, let's say, an EcoCast, how much are you involved with that, Kimberly? Because it seems like a lot of times by the time us actors see these character descriptions, they don't fit the sides. And I got a perfect example of one where the ethnicity is changed on something I got to do tomorrow. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you guys don't always see, and that's just breakdown services giving that to the actors, or is there no time to change the breakdowns if the role slightly changes?
Right. Well, anytime I've had them break down a script and everything, I've always proofed it. So you do have an opportunity to look at it. It doesn't just get posted. Do you know what I mean? It has to go through, they'll send it to us and then they'll say, scan and approve. Now, it could be a situation where last minute a role does change, an ethnicity changes or a gender changes. So I would count on the fact that if they've asked you to cast it and it doesn't look like you fit the description, they may know something more than you know. So I would just tape. Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Oh yeah, I would definitely tape. It's just sometimes you look at the sides and you look at the character description, and the character description doesn't fit the current side, so you kind of have to put the character description away.
Is it because they're using it from another project to have you read
No,
on?
it doesn't seem to fit. They put a lot of adjectives about what this person's supposed to be like, and you look at the sides, and it's like, really? It's just a
No, I know.
curiosity.
I used to go through that in voiceovers when when I'd cast and they'd be like, you know, happy with a tinge of sadness, and you're like all over the place. You're like, what? So I'd be like, just read the lines, whatever.
Yeah. Oh,
I
okay,
don't know. I don't know. I'd have to see something specific, but you know, I always tell people just, I mean, those are guidelines,
right,
but go with your gut. Your gut's always going to tell you the right thing. It's when you get in your head about it.
right. I agree. I always
Okay.
defer to what's on the page, and if the character description fits, it's great. Hey, whatever happened to I believe in unicorns?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a long, long time ago. I think Bush was still president. Um, um, yeah, we started to work on it and then it went on hold for a time because I think the director's father died or something.
Okay.
I'm going way back in my head here. Um, and then yeah, that was it for us. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks a
Sorry.
lot. All right.
All right, Julian. Julian, are you there?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
Julian.
Hi. Hi, how's it going? So I had a quick question on a couple things, but I'm just gonna cut time. So could you share any examples of actors who made a strong impression on you and how they kind of did so?
Sure. Good impressions or bad impressions?
All the above. Give us the juicy details.
Okay, I'll give you one good and one bad, but I'm not naming names. So
That's smart.
somebody came in. No, I can name a name for this one. I won't name the bad one, but so Costa Ronan, who was he played Yevgeny on our show. Prior to that, he was on the Americans, and I remember staying at the office late because he was coming from set, and he walked in and he's really tall, and I was like, oh, you're tall. anyway, he came in and I don't know, I don't know what it was about him. He just had something. And I was like behind the camera like this, because I didn't want to see him with my mouth open. I was like, oh my God, this guy is so good. And it was literally, it's so rare this happens, because you can always be like, oh, I like this person and this person, you know what I mean? And you're always grateful that you're not the one that has to make the decision, right? At the end of the day. But for him, I was like, there's nobody else. There's nobody else that can do this role. It just fit him like a glove. So that's the good one. The bad one, I brought somebody in, had a famous career in the 70s, 80s. And he made my intern cry. He wouldn't give his phone number out. So that's how we started. And I was like, no big deal. We only take your number if we can't get a hold of your agent, but he was so intimidating. And anyway, came in and read the role, and I gave him an adjustment, and he started to argue with me that the camera wouldn't be on him at that moment. And now he did have directing, as well on his resume. I mean, he was an actor, director, but I'm thinking to myself, all right, dude, you know how this is going to be shot? This is an audition. I know a little bit more than you on this role. Like, just take the note. And so I said, that's fine. We're good. Thank you so much. And I didn't bring him in again. I don't want that showing up on set. Are you kidding me? I don't want to get that call. I don't care how famous you are. My name's on that too. So that was that. So, okay. But I won't tell you
Thank
who
you
you
so
are
much.
yet.
I appreciate it.
You want all the juicy bits, don't you?
You know it.
For sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Julian. Are there any other questions that I have missed?
Val has one. She's been waiting patiently.
Oh, good. Please.
Stand right, Val.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this.
Sure.
So I have two questions. One, so for actors that are either needing new demo reel footage or just new to the game, I've had my agent Katrina from Swag Talent. She said that casting directors are preferring that, like on Actors Access for clips that you upload, portions of self tapes that are the best versus like, I guess, just created content. If you and your friends are filmmakers. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. I've gotten both answers. I want to update my footage, so that's why I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, you're going to get all kinds of different answers with this. I mean, I think if you don't have anything at all,
or if it doesn't look like you anymore, like if it's so old,
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be helpful to us, right? But I don't personally have a problem. Like, if you did an audition for some other project and you felt really good about it, I mean, it's something for me to look at. So that's my opinion. But you're going to have other people who are going to be like, no, I need to have, fully produced stuff. I don't care. I mean, I here again, I'm looking at the performance. I'm not looking at all the other stuff. So clips are really helpful these days because we move so quickly. So clips can be good if you want to like and label them like drama, comedy, something I can go to right away. And if it's gonna be helpful, because we do move quickly. And if you're gonna do a reel, keep it under 2 minutes. We're not gonna stick around for the whole 2 minutes, probably.
Right. That makes sense.
We don't have time,
Right.
You're getting hundreds of, I mean, if I can just give you an example, if I was doing a film a couple years ago, and the lead role got like over 4,000 submissions just on the one role. You know what I mean? So you're already going through this like weeding down process, weeding down. So it's just, we move quickly.
Clips, yeah, I know clips are like the name of the game. I just you know, I know that sometimes you might not have gotten, like, if you need like a nurse clip, but you don't have it yet because you haven't been in like a, I don't know, a project that has, is it acceptable to have a really good, like, I guess 20-30 second portion of a good self-tape up? If you don't have access to cameras.
What's a nurse clip?
Or I guess like,
To show
you
you
know,
can
showing
play a
that you
nurse?
could play a nurse, or like, or showing that you can play a certain character. Or if you just need footage in general, need
No,
new
I
clips.
just laugh because people are like, you know, I have a cop clip, I have to have a nurse clip, and I'm like, I just don't come at it that way. I'm
Oh,
like,
that doesn't
that's just a
matter.
costume. Who cares? Like, can you act? You know, what are your sensibilities? Are they popping through in the role? Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I don't know how this crazy business works.
My second quick question is, what about actors with tattoos? Is that like, is that like an instant turn off? Like if you have one like this that's visible?
Well, no, you can cover it up. Angelina Jolie has tattoos.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you have your
Sure.
face pierced and you know you got tattoos all over your, one could be an issue, you know, but if we're not looking for that, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, if they're easy enough to cover up, I don't let that worry you. So
Okay.
that's all cosmetic stuff.
Thank you.
Did we get to everyone's questions? I praise the Lord,
Oh,
right?
Gabby has a question.
Oh, Gabby, okay. And then we'll need to wrap.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Kim, for doing this.
Sure.
My question to you is, what's your biggest pet peeve on tape and in person?
Good question.
Both.
The pet peeve question. Wait, you want one for in person and one for self-tape?
Sure.
Well, I think I touched upon the self-tape one earlier when I was like, follow the self-tape directions.
Okay, so that will be
And
one.
yeah, and don't be like, here's 4 takes of the, no, I don't need 4 takes. Give me one good one. If you're gonna give me 2, make sure they're different. Because I see too many send, and I'll be like, what's the difference in this? It's the same thing. So that's that. If you're in the room, I don't know, making excuses, I think. You know, or I just got this last night. Yeah, so did I. That's why you got it last night. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just, because you're already setting yourself up to fail when you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? My favorite audition, I'll give it to you this way. My favorite audition is you come into the room, when we're in the room, I say, do you have any questions? And you say, no, unless there's something you want to say. And I say, no. You tape, and then maybe I give you an adjustment, and then I say thank you, and then you leave. It's my favorite audition.
Easy. Right? Go in, do the job, and head out.
Don't be weird. Don't be weird. Don't be, you know, shutting off your cell phone in the room. Like I got, you know, I'm pretty efficient. I got 7 minutes. That's 2 minutes for you walking in and out of the room, and then the 5 minutes to do the scene and give you an adjustment. So you want to take your time with that, fixing your hair and shutting off your cell phone. That's just less time I have with you. So
Do you have a workshop that you're planning to do anytime soon? And if so, where can we find out about it?
Yeah, that was going to be our last.
Oh, I read your mind.
Yeah, everyone's reading each other's minds tonight. It's excellent.
well, I do a 3-week every month on Tuesday evenings. That kind of covers the audition, every possible audition you could do. So you'll get an assigned scene, a cold read, and then we do improv. And to find out about those, you could just sign up on my website at kimberlygraham.net. I'm a net, not an org.
And I'm going to put this in the chat.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I do those via Zoom. So I'm still doing Zoom because then I can meet people like Leslie and you guys from outside of New York. I'll be doing one next month, I think in June. I'm possibly, well, we're firming up. I teach internationally, so I'm firming up a trip to Serbia, Croatia, Scandinavia, and Paris to teach. So
Oh,
that'll be in June, July-ish. Gotta get over there before the holiday, because everybody goes on holiday.
right.
Oh, yeah. So that's
Well, thank you so much for.
yeah,
letting us
and I
know.
I send out the notice once a month. Maybe I'll do a reminder, but I'm not bombarding your emails, so don't worry about that. But it's a fun group, and I keep
It's
my
very
class
fun.
small.
It's very fun. And I was really obnoxious when I first started working with Kim, because I would make everybody in the class, I would take my computer and show them the mountains of New Mexico. I'd
You know,
stop the whole class and go, wait, look.
yeah, we're all sitting in our 2x4s, during COVID, and Leslie's like, look at my yard. And I was like, you know what? That's mean. That's just plain old mean. But then again, it was like fantasy. Outdoors.
And I invited everyone to come. So
I know. And I need to get out to New Mexico. It's definitely on my bucket list for sure.
well,
But
we'll have a workshop with you if you come. So
yeah, let's do it, man. That'd be awesome.
yeah.
Yay.
Anyway, hey, we've gone way over, but you can see why, right? One of the most fun people, wise and fun and wise. Good combo.
It's fun and wise. Yes.
Kimberly,
Right.
AKA Kim.
Kim.
Thank you so much. You've set us all straight. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Listen, don't worry about nothing. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Just remember, I'm gonna leave you with this. All we're doing is playing. We're just playing. That's all we're doing. We're not saving lives. Have fun, right? All right. I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, y'all. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that baby, Gigi.
I know, isn't he beautiful?
Oh my gosh, look at that beautiful baby. Oh,
Bye.
wow.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too. Good night, everyone.